In session number 9, we will cover military law literature, and this presentation would indicate the different books and other publications that are needed during the military law series. This is to remind you that military law is a body of law that governs how a member of the armed forces may behave, and as with all forms of law, is subject to periodic change. Now, this is applicable to all the members of the armed forces, and it regulates their conduct while they are in military service. These provisions govern the role of Indian Army during peace and also war, and these have been formulated in the form of statutes, rules, and regulations. Now, the law literature that would be indicated for the students of military law can be in two categories, two bundles. One are the official publications or bare acts. Now, official publications, all of them are not in public domain. Some of them are only available to the members of the armed forces. On the other hand, there are some open publications that would indicate and that do indicate adequate uh, adequate sort of structure of military law provisions that are explained in these category of open publications. The main document and the basic publication is called MML, that is Manual of Military Law. It's an official publication carried out by Government of India. It is there in three parts, and the first part has introductory chapters. Then it reproduces Army Act and Army rules together with their notes. Now, these notes are like comments which have been inserted and incorporated in the at the end of each provision of Army Act and Army rules for the information and benefit of members of the armed forces who may not have otherwise benefit of a legal education in a formal way. These MML also carry for easy compilation and access. They give an access to the provisions of Indian Evidence Act, Indian Penal Code, certain applicable and relevant provisions relevant with regard to military law of the Constitution of India and other acts and rules. As I have indicated, these may be provided in extracts or completely. Now, for essential reading uh, that would help the students of military law series would be the Constitution of India, the Army Act 1950, Army Rules 1954, and lest an impression is created that only Army Act is being indicated, well, together with Army Act, the students may like to get hold a copy of the Air Force Act, the Navy Act, then there are rules. Thereafter, in 2007, Parliament enacted Armed Forces Tribunal Act. Now, the Tribunal Principal Bench and the regional benches have been set up. They are operational in different parts of India. So, the Armed Forces Tribunal Act is also relevant together with Armed Forces Special Power Act, in short AF-SPA, of 1958, and Protection of Human Rights Act. At this stage, it may be relevant to indicate that some other provisions, for example, Offshore Secret Act or the the law relating to right to information or prevention of corruption. Well, these are also relevant, but they are not strictly part of military law and therefore have not been shown on the slide here. Insofar as the Constitution is concerned, for benefit and quick run through the relevance and significance for the students of military law would be the preamble, then Article 1, moving on to Part 3, Articles 12 to 35, dealing with the fundamental rights, 50, which is on separation of judiciary from the executive, 51, promotion of internal peace and security. Thereafter, 52, the President of India, 53, lays down the executive power of the Union, 136, relating to special leave to appeal to the Supreme Court, 141, the law declared by Supreme Court to be binding on all courts in the territory of India, 227, power of superintendence of the High Courts, and moving on to 246, which is the subject matter of laws that can be on which the laws can be made by the parliament and the state legislatures. 299 pertaining to contracts. 300 deals with suits and proceedings. Article 309 on recruitment and conditions of service of persons serving the union or different states. 310 that concerns the tenure of office of persons serving the union or state. 311 deals with separation by way of dismissal, removal, and also reduction in rank of persons employed in civil capacities. And then the laws, articles falling under Article 352 to 360 that pertain to emergency provisions. Now, this is not in a way to indicate that other provisions of Constitution are not significant. It is taken, it is presumed that the students of this military law series have had an exposure to the Constitution of India, and this is just to recapitulate which all provisions would have an interplay and would impact the study of military law that was just indicated to you. Now, there are certain other books that are recommended, that are there for recommended reading, and these books are Court Martial and Military Matters, Court Martial Under Scrutiny. These two books, the first two, would have number of topics that have been illustrated, they have been explained, and therefore they would duly inform and sensitize the readers to the provisions of military law and the practice and application of military law. Then there are books, Military Law Handbook for Commanders, case studies on military law, which are useful for those who are in service but would also benefit those others who may not be serving in military but would like to gain knowledge of military law. Law relating to armed forces in India that has compiled a large volume of court cases relating to military and military matters, both High Court, Supreme Court of India, as also some certain foreign jurisdictions, and then Armed Forces Tribunal Law. So these 6 books, and moving beyond, law relating to disability benefits. Now, since the service in the armed forces, in the military, deals with weapons, ammunition, outdoor service, and exposure to different climates within in India, various regions on the borders, as also outside. So, a number of soldiers in different ranks may suffer injuries by way of disease and disability. And that's why the aspect of disability pension or disability benefits assumes importance for them. And this book at serial number 7 catalogs the rulings given by various courts pertaining to aggravation of disease, attributability of disease. So this covers the law relating to disability benefits. Then there is a book on military law lexicon, military law then, now and beyond, and law of armed conflict application and practice. Well, these all 10 books have been authored by me. There are also, before I go to other books, these 10 books, their cover pages can be seen on this slide. There are also other books by eminent authors on military law. For example, a book by Admiral O.P. Sharma. He was a former Judge Advocate General of Indian Navy. Then a book by Major General A.C. Mangla. He was the JAG in Army. A book by Colonel G.K. Sharma. Initially, he wrote alone, then together with Colonel M.S. Jaswal, a JAG officer. Number of very scholarly publications by Wing Commander Dr. U.C. Jha. A recent publication by Colonel Dr. Arun Vashisht. Then the books that were written a few years back by Major J.L. Oberoi, Brigadier R.G. Vidhu, and Justice S.B. Malik. Apart from the books which are there by Major B.S. Jain, and then a book done by D.C. Jain, N.K. Indrayan, and C.G. Goyal. Well, these books can be seen, their ISBN number, name of publishers, etc., are available in Google search if one goes to military law literature in India. And these books can be seen by you also in the description of this video. Apart from these open publications, there are certain other books which have been grouped under recommended reading, and these are Defense Services Regulations, uh, also known as RA or Regulations for the Army, Pay and Accounts Regulations, which are separate for the officers, JSOs, and other ranks. Then Indian Military Nursing Service Ordinance, that's of 1943. And then there is a very useful book for application and practice of military law titled Notes to Indian Military and Air Force Law, which is an official publication. A part of military law and grouped with it is the IHL or International Humanitarian Law, which is also known as Law of Armed Conflict or Law of War. And for the study of IHL, one needs to be aware of the Geneva Conventions, which are of 1949, and there are 3 additional protocols, and together with the Statute for International Criminal Court. Now, these would suffice the essential reading of military law. This is well, the reasons are not known, that but regulations for the army, which I said is defense services regulations, and notes to military air force law. These 2 publications, which are of Government of India, but they are only accessible to the military personnel, but the scholars and the public at large which wants to acquire knowledge and study military law provisions would need to approach the Ministry of Defense for getting these 2 books on payment. At this stage, it would also be interesting to know that there are certain official forms which have a direct bearing on the study of military law. They are listed here. They are part of the official publications, but one would need to go through them, and these are there. For example, enrollment form, forms of charges, then in Appendix 2, form as to court-martial disposal of charges against an NCO, and form as to summary disposal of charges against NCOs and JCOs. Well, these forms are there in the Bear Act. There are certain other forms like Form 4 relating to form of delay report. These can be seen there. In the end, I would like to tell the readers that for a beneficial study of military law provisions, it is important that access to the relevant literature should be made use of or should be attempted. That would help in a fruitful and gainful study of this subject. Thank you.